Yes.
To begin with, as you know, the Pentagon has warned Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed Hezbollah, to think twice, in their words, before opening a second front. How feasible do you think it is for Hezbollah to open another front in the north of Israel right now? And what does it exactly mean that the Pentagon has had to warn Hezbollah? How imminent is that threat?
Well, there have already been some cross-border raids from Lebanon. Whether it's Hezbollah or not is not completely clear. Yesterday, 5 or 6 militants or terrorists crossed over the border and were killed by Israeli forces before they could kill any Israelis inside Israel, this is. I don't think Hezbollah claimed responsibility, so we're not 100% sure it's Hezbollah, but it's likely to be. And I think this morning there was also an incident in northern Israel with somebody who'd come over from Lebanon. But what Israel's concerned about on a much bigger scale is that it will not be easy for Israel to try and demilitarize Hamas, which is the stated aim. The stated aim is to essentially remove the military capacity, the huge amounts of weapons that Hamas in Gaza have. Israel, which is quite a small country, have called up 300,000 reservists, which is, you know, a lot of people for a small country. But were Hezbollah to start firing rockets in particular or do a ground incursion from the north, this will stretch Israel's fighting capabilities. It's not that Israel couldn't win, but it would be very stretched to be fighting both in the south and north simultaneously. So I think what's happened is that Prime Minister Netanyahu has spoken at least twice with President Biden in the last 2 days. And I should point out that they barely spoke at all in the last year because there have been some disagreements about other issues. So they've spoken as much in the last 2 days as they have in the whole year. And all kinds of other military officials between the US and Israel have been speaking. And I think what Israel has probably requested is a kind of American guarantee, which is why they've moved a battleship off the coast of Lebanon to warn Hezbollah not to engage against Israel in any meaningful way once Israel, as expected, launches a more substantial campaign against Hamas in the south. So I think the idea is don't think twice, Hezbollah, before you start involving yourself at the same time. And, you know, it would be difficult for Israel to have rockets, thousands and thousands of rockets raining down indiscriminately. You know, I mean, I know you know this, but just to remind your audience, it's not like Hamas or Hezbollah are directing the rockets at military targets or some specific targets. They are trying to murder everyone they can, essentially, in Israel. Not just Israeli Jews, they often also kill Israeli Arabs and Bedouin too, and other foreign nationals. So if you have huge amounts of rockets being fired at Israel from south and north, even though Israel has a very sophisticated rocket defense system, not just the Iron Dome, but some other methods, it can only do so much. It's not equipped to be able to intervene with so many rockets being fired at the same time. In fact, as we saw in the last days when Hamas have fired at least 5,000 rockets, the Iron Dome system has been very, very good at preventing most of them landing in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but some have got through. It just can't manage to intercept so many rockets. If there's a rocket being fired every few seconds, it's not perfect. So and it's certainly believed that Hezbollah have much more sophisticated rockets and much with heavier payloads than Hamas does. So I think there is a feeling that whether Iran has directly organized this terror attack that we've seen at the weekend, there's certainly some coordination involved with Iran. And
actually, this is the second question that I had, apart from Hezbollah in particular. As you know, Wall Street Journal reported during the weekend that, in their words, Iran helped plan Hamas's attack on Israel. But at the same time, we have had officials in America and also officials in Iran who have denied. Actually, in America, they said that we don't have any evidence that proves such involvement by the Islamic Republic in the attacks on Israel by Hamas. Do you see any direct link between the Islamic Republic in Iran and these attacks by Hamas? And if yes, to what extent has been this involvement?
Well, I've read the Wall Street Journal article that you mentioned, and it's very specific. It says, in fact, I'll just read it out for the benefit of your readers. I've got it right in front of me. The first line is Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas's surprise attack on Israel on Saturday and gave the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut last Monday, according to senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah, another Iran-backed militant group. That's the Wall Street Journal I just read out. So the Wall Street Journal is saying they gave direct go-ahead 1 week ago in Beirut at a meeting involving Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. Now, as you said, that's been denied, and I don't have any evidence for sure that is correct, and people in Israel I've spoken to have not confirmed to me they have evidence that's correct. But to answer your wider question, there is no doubt that Iran is involved, the Iranian regime is involved in what was the worst terror attack on Jews since the Holocaust, which happened over the weekend. It's not just about numbers. It's about the sheer number, the sheer sadism, brutality. They burned some children alive by setting them alive in their homes in one kibbutz in southern Israel. Other people were decapitated. This was not attack. There was never going to be an attack against the Israeli army. Most of the victims are either teenagers or people in their 20s who were at the big music festival, or they were people enjoying what was a Jewish holiday on a Saturday morning at home in small villages, farms, and kibbutzes, and these whole families wiped out. It's not just about the numbers killed, it's about how they killed and who they killed. So there is no question that this was a sophisticated attack by Hamas to breach Israeli border fences and so on. And there's no question that Iran is involved. That doesn't mean they directly planned it, but they certainly helped finance it. They've certainly been involved in training at different points with various Hamas figures. It's not clear that they have to actually say, go ahead and attack now. They've already given them the money, the ability to manufacture arms by training them on how to do so, by smuggling various arms in by boat or by tunnels underneath the border with Egypt and so on. And Hamas may have got the green light without actually being directed, on every stage of their attacks. But for sure, Hamas are not operating independently at this point. We know they have equipment, for example, that has been manufactured by Russia and by North Korea. So it's quite possible Iran procured this equipment for them. So, maybe it came up through Sudan or something. But the Iranian Revolutionary Guards certainly have their fingerprints all over it, all over this attack, though that doesn't mean that they actually sat down and went target by target and exactly what was going to happen. But they're certainly the kind of father figures of terror of Hamas at this point, as they are with Hezbollah in Lebanon.
And as the last question, if it actually comes to light that the Iranian elements or Iranian forces were more extensively involved in the attacks against the Israelis, what is going to be the repercussion for the Islamic Republic?
Well, I think the first thing that Israel is trying to do is literally deal with Hamas in Gaza to stop missiles flying over. Even today, there are missiles flying over, and some Israelis are having to sleep all night in bomb shelters or take cover, and schools are shut and so on. So the first matter of priority is to deal with the problem in Gaza of armed Hamas terrorists, fighters, whatever you want to call them. Dealing then, the second priority is probably dealing with the Hamas leadership. I am told that the very top leaders in Hamas are presently located in Beirut, possibly with Hezbollah protection, and one or two of them may also be in Syria or Iran. I believe, but this is me speculating, that if there is the opportunity for Israel to arrest or otherwise deal with the leaders of Hamas, even if they are in what is an enemy country like Syria or possibly Lebanon, Israel will do so. Although I'm also told that Israel does not want to hit any Hezbollah leadership because it doesn't want to sort of force Hezbollah into a position where Hezbollah also start attacking Israel. So in other words, some of the senior Hamas people may be physically located with some of the senior Hezbollah people as a kind of deterrent against Israel, because Israel would not be able to get at the Hamas people without also getting at the Hezbollah people at the same time, and Israel does not want to open up two fronts. And the final part of your question, what if it came to light that somebody in Tehran, in the regime, sat down and drew out a plan on how to murder as many Israeli children and teenagers as possible, I believe that Israel would take some action against the regime, but what action that would be and what's possible and so on, I can only speculate, and I won't do so now.
Mr. Tom Gross, thank you very much, sir.